Hi guys, Olive here. Today I'm here to do a non-fiction book haul, my favorite type of book haul. For some reason over the past year, I've been craving non-fiction like nothing else. That's not that unusual for me, but it has been even more so than usual. I have so many gorgeous and amazing sounding books to show you in this haul, so let's get started. The first one I bought at Barnes & Noble at full price, which is unusual for me. Steve Donahue is probably going to be upset that I paid full price for it. But that first book is The Genius of Birds by Jennifer Ackerman. Ever since finishing and loving H's for Hawk, I have had a voracious appetite for any book dealing with birds. This is a book all about the intelligence of birds. They are supremely intelligent creatures, and the back of this book says that it is personal and yet scientific, which is probably my favorite style of nature writing. This next one I think will particularly speak to BookTube. That book is called The Storytelling Animal: How Stories Make Us Human by Jonathan Gottschall. This is a book all about the human relationship with stories and storytelling. In it, the author argues that humans use stories as a device to navigate complex social problems. To prove this point, he draws on research from neuroscience, psychology, and biology. Given that we are all lovers of stories here on BookTube, I will be incredibly interested to hear his arguments. This next book is so beautiful. It's called The Water Book by Alok Jha. This is, of course, all about water and the human relationship with the substance. Once again, this is a book right up my alley, given that it talks about water in the scientific sense, but also in the historical sense. The next book I picked up is Animals Strike Curious Poses by Elena Passarello. I bought this one off of a recommendation from Helen McDonald, who is the author of H's for Hawk. I will pretty much do whatever that woman tells me to do, including jumping off a bridge. This is a collection of essays on famous animals throughout history. There are 16 essays in this collection, and they are said to traverse history, science, and myth. I cannot wait to see exactly why Helen McDonald recommended this. Another really cool naked hardback that I picked up recently is called Wicked Bugs: The Louse That Conquered Napoleon's Army and Other Diabolical Insects by Amy Stewart. So this is a book all about insidious insects, and it is full of gorgeous, albeit creepy illustrations, like so. Kind of along the same lines, this next book that I picked up is probably now the most gorgeous book that I own. That is The Book of Barely Imagined Beings by Casper Henderson. This is a book all about animals that are so extraordinary that they seem like they are ripped straight out of a fairy tale. But actually, they are real animals that exist in our world. The book is full of really cool illustrations, photos, and of course, facts. I just know I'm going to adore this. The last book I picked up about the natural world is called The Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson. This book is mainly a memoir. It is about how in the 1970s, Peter Matheson went with a field biologist to the Himalayas to study wild sheep. While they were there, they were hoping to catch a glimpse of the famously elusive snow leopard. This is about the physical journey that Peter Matheson took, but also about his spiritual journey with Buddhism. The next book I picked up I think would actually be a good one to read at the same time as The Snow Leopard. That is the Tibetan Book of Wisdom. This is a classic of Buddhist literature that is chock full of Buddhist wisdom. Considering Peter Matheson is a Buddhist, that's why I think these two would be good right at the same time. I've always been extremely interested in Buddhism. I took a course in college all about Buddhism and Hinduism. I actually went to a sister school of my university because my college did not offer any courses in Buddhism or Hinduism, but I did not want to let that stop me from learning about Eastern religions. I will be very curious to see how much knowledge I have retained from that course while going through this book. The next book I picked up I don't think everyone would find interesting, but I certainly do. It's called The Joy of Tax by Richard Murphy. This is a book that I first heard about from Jean of Jean's Bookish Thoughts. My most recent course that I took, which was my very last course of my most recent certification program, was on taxes. In that course, we learned a little bit about the history of taxation and kind of the social theory behind it. I found that part of the course fascinating. So when I heard about this book, I was really interested in picking it up, even though I know it is very UK-centric. Though I live in the United States, I am still very curious to hear what he has to say about taxes. I think we all should know a little bit more about taxes, considering it's one of the two inevitabilities of life: death and taxes. The next book I picked up is a biography that I just had to get my hands on. That book is called Mad Madge: The Extraordinary Life of Margaret Cavendish, Duchess of Newcastle, the First Woman to Live by Her Pen by Katie Whitaker. Just to properly beat that dead horse, I absolutely loved Margaret I by Danielle Dutton. As soon as I finished it, I knew I needed to learn more about who Margaret Cavendish really was. At the back of Margaret I, Danielle Dutton referenced this as one of the books that she consulted while writing Margaret I, so I knew I had to buy it. The next book I picked up sounded super cool. It's called Chasing Aphrodite: The Hunt for Looted Antiquities at the World's Richest Museum. This is one of those stories that seems so crazy that it seems like it must be made up. This is all about the scandal that emerged when it was revealed that the Getty Museum was buying looted antiquities for display in their museum. This is the story of how they went about doing that. This is the story about how they were exposed and how those looted antiquities finally made their way back to where they belonged. The next nonfiction book I picked up is Egypt, A Short History by Robert L. Tigner. This is a sweeping history of Egypt from its beginnings 5,000 years ago up to the present day when this was published in 2010. It is very clearly an overview considering just how short this book is for how much history it hopes to cover. I'm hoping it will provide a good introduction to periods of Egypt's history that I do not yet know about. However, I am always skeptical of books that seem too short for their very lofty ambitions. The next book I picked up is Women of the Pleasure Quarters: The Secret History of the Geisha by Leslie Downer. Way before I started on BookTube, I read Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. The whole time I was reading that book, I knew I was not getting a realistic image of what it was actually like to be a geisha. I'm hoping that this book can provide a more realistic picture. The last section of books that I'm going to show you in this haul are all relating to Russia. The first book I picked up is From Niet to Da: Understanding the Russians by Yale Richmond. I used this book very heavily in my honors thesis in college. I loved it. I thought it was super interesting. I was very surprised that I never bought this one for my collection, so I fixed that. These last 4 books all came from Steve Donahue, the first being Catherine the Great's Love, Sex, and Power by Virginia Rounding. Just rounding out my collection on Catherine the Great. Another book to add to my ever-growing collection of books on Russia is St. Petersburg, Russia's Window to the Future, the First 3 Centuries. This is going to make me so nostalgic. Unsurprisingly, Steve sent me another arc about the Russian Revolution, this one called Russia in Flames. Since 2017 marks the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution, I've been seeing a lot of these from Steve lately, although this one is going to be released on my birthday. That was nice of them to consider me. And the last one I'd like to show you is another new release about Russia coming out in October that Steve sent me. That one is called The Future is History: How Totalitarianism Reclaimed Russia by Masha Gessen. I am hugely interested in this, to say the least. I'm already raising an eyebrow at the title, though specifically at the use of the word reclaimed. I did my whole honors thesis on the cultural roots of totalitarianism and autocracy in Russia. So basically my problem with this book already is don't call it a comeback. I will be extremely interested to go through this book and see just what argument Masha Gessen is trying to make. I will probably feel compelled to do a review of this one in one fashion or another. So those are all the nonfiction books that I've acquired recently. I hope they sound as interesting to you as they do to me. Just gonna keep on fighting that good fight to bring more nonfiction to BookTube because it is just as interesting as fiction. If you've read any of these books, if you've heard about them, or if you're now interested in reading them after having heard about them in this haul, I would love to hear from you down in the comment section below. You can also find me on a variety of places on social media. The links to all of my profiles are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.